Well, good morning and welcome. Welcome to our Live Better session. It's with great pleasure that I introduce our next speaker, Judy Ryan. Judy Ryan is president of LifeWorks. I don't want to waste 1 minute because you're going to really enjoy her session. On page 36 of your workbook is her write-up. Judy's topic is how to build caring relationships. And I don't know anyone who could do a better job than that, because number one, she cares about people, and she's passionate, and she's entertaining and extremely educational. So please join me in welcoming Judy Ryan.
Such a sweetheart. Hi, I don't know how entertaining I am. I'm actually quite a nerd. I really like systems, so I'll try not to get too nerdy on you here. Okay, it's a tall order to make a difference around caring relationships, but in my opinion, that's really what makes us have a life that we love. And my purpose in my work is to help people have a world where they love their lives and that create the conditions and the relationships for that. I just want to thank you all for choosing this topic. There's a lot of competition out there with really wonderful topics this morning, so really appreciate that you sitting in here. A lot of us hear the term emotional intelligence, social intelligence. Really what that means is there's 4 components to that. One is that we're self-aware. We're aware of our emotions and our choices, and then we are self-managing. And then, if we do those 2 well, we can become aware of our relationships with others and what others are going through. And then we can become good at managing those relationships. So I'm going to give you a little bit on each of those areas. Okay, so what will you be learning at the end of this little session? You should understand how to recognize and begin to navigate what are the 4 stages that are part of building caring relationships. How do you make some accountable requests and agreements so that you're practicing straightforwardness? And how can you identify reasons that you or other people around you might be gossiping? And what can you do about that? Because that's one of those things, just like Larry was saying, sometimes our health issues we don't think about, we don't talk about it on the table. So hopefully you'll have some strategies you can take away at the end of this around those 3. So this information came from, I don't know if any of you have ever read the work of M. Scott Peck. He recently died a couple years ago. He wrote The Road Less Traveled, A Different Drum. He talks about the 4 stages of teamwork or caring relationships. So I kind of want to just have that million-mile view of relationships. The first stage, it's not necessarily always a fake bad stage, but it is if we get stuck in it. And it's called pseudo-community. And in pseudo-community, what we do is we focus on all the things we agree on and all the places that we have an alike. And we start acting like that's all there is to our relationship. So sometimes that's called the honeymoon phase. If we stay there, it's because we become really committed to peace at all cost. So do you all kind of know times in your life where you have stayed in this pseudo-community type of a dynamic with people? What happens is it becomes fake and it becomes safe. And so it becomes unsatisfying and uncreative. The next stage doesn't sound like progress, but it's actually progress. Chaos. How could that be progress? Well, chaos is only a problem if we stay stuck there. But what chaos is where we start to recognize and acknowledge that we have differences. But what we do in chaos is we try to eliminate them. So what that looks like is, I want you to be me and me to be you. You want me to be you. That's what it really looks like. I start, when I'm in chaos, trying to control you, pressure you, fix you, heal you, convert you. Don't we love that when that happens? There's a saying that we should put over our mirrors every day, that love is not about controlling, fixing, changing, converting others. But we forget that. And part of it is because we have a belief that our happiness and our joy and our ability to keep our hearts open is outside of us. Does that make sense? So It's helpful to know that this is a step forward because this is when the power struggle happens and you recognize that you have problems. However, what most people do in the stage of chaos is they'll get a divorce. They'll leave a company. They'll say, oh, I must have picked the wrong neighborhood or whatever. Not to say there aren't times to do that, but there's a lot of time where it's more helpful to learn, like as Larry said, to take the opportunity from the adversity of the differences and move through them and grow through them. So it is helpful to remember it's a step forward when you're in it, but to get committed to move through it gracefully. So the next stage can sound a little confusing because it's called the stage of empty. And empty, to a lot of people, they think it's lonely or aloneness. And to some extent there is, because in empty, you start to listen and stop trying to control, fix, convert, and heal. Now, not only others, but also ourselves, is to open to just being aware. And a lot of times, we're so problem-solving oriented that we don't see the value of actually just opening the space without rushing into a solution. Does that make sense? When we're in the stage of empty, we start recognizing the differences from a place of softening and opening. We start to be receptive to one another. We start to respect one another. And we start to be open about what we're experiencing. Instead of saying, I don't want you to do this to me, we're saying, I notice I'm feeling insecure when this is happening. So it's a different place of not necessarily rushing to solution, but where real solution can happen. There's a very detailed description of this in the workbook. This is just kind of touching on the key points to it. And when we do this well, what happens is, because we've stopped putting pressure on the relationships and there's receptivity, you're actually building the muscles for building trust. Because the 8 values that build trust are these 4 here and these 4 here. We become consistently straightforward, consistently honest. We follow through with things. We don't say things we don't mean. We don't say things just to keep the peace. And we become committed to living from purpose, which in itself creates a seeking of excellence in our lives. Living for, what am I here to cause? What am I here to cause in my relationships? If you really were to look back on it, there's a book that I read recently called The Untethered Soul. It's a great book. But one of the things he says in there is that we learn from death. But most of us don't learn until we're on our deathbed. So the gifts we can learn from death are that what matters is creating authentic community. And when you do, I was talking to somebody this morning. She worked for a company and she just recently got laid off. And she said because they had to restructure and it really is, needed. But she said the people she worked with were so good to her. She said she would have done anything for them. What a testimony to how they were able to build caring relationships. Okay, so why do we get stuck in chaos? As I kind of alluded, we're busy minding other people's yards. So if nothing else, remember, maybe even put a sign up. I have some of my clients that have a sign up that says, stay in your own yard. And that's a hard thing to do because we think whether somebody approves, loves, and accepts us is our business, and it's not. It's really none of your business. We have enough work to do on ourselves to know what our own motives are, our own intentions, our own purposes. What does empty look and feel like? It looks like a real exchange. It looks like a real sending and receiving. So one of the things I want to talk about is an area that we actually don't always realize we have discomfort in. And that's around making accountable requests and agreements with people. Do you ever have a situation where you're talking to somebody or you're in relationship with somebody and you're thinking, that's not how I remember it? Or didn't they get what I was saying? Or, huh? Or I thought I was being very clear. I thought I was being very straightforward. So I want to talk to you about a couple of ways to make sure that your requests and agreements are accountable. The first thing is to be very conscious about how you make requests from people. The first part of it is you want to make sure that you're slowing down enough in your life to say, what am I feeling and what do I want? Because if you're not, you're probably doing things from I ought to, I have to, I should, I need to, I can't. So when you slow down and say, what am I feeling and what do I want? You want to get comfortable with the word to ask somebody, what I want is for you to do A, B, and C. Now, I know people that don't want to say the word want. What I need is, what I'd like, sure would be great if somebody did those dishes. But we don't want to put it on the table and say what I want is. And then, even if we say what I want, we don't always say, are you willing to follow through and do that? The other thing we don't do well is we don't always give a response in a healthy and accountable way. Okay, so let me see if I get this. You want me to take your car up to the gas station, fill it up with gas, and wash it for you. Did I get that right? And then to say yes or no. We all know as kids, we would ask for things and we would hound, can I? And somebody wouldn't answer that question because we're uncomfortable fulfilling even just the answer to a question or request. So I'd like to actually have you all practice this at least once this week, but I want somebody to come up and demonstrate this with me. So can I have one volunteer from the audience? Okay, so Robert. So what I'm going to do, and I want to demonstrate this, and I want you to do this with somebody this week. So what I'm going to do is, and just so you can see this, maybe you can stand right here.
Right here.
I'm going to ask you for 4 things.
Okay.
And the first time, I'm going to demonstrate this request process, and you're going to demonstrate the response process.
Okay.
The first 3 times, I want you to say no without any qualifications, just the word no. And the last time I want you to say yes, but you don't have to give it to me. Okay? So, Robert, what I want is for you to wash my car. Are you willing?
No.
Okay, so do you see how quick he forgot the process? So go ahead and try it this way.
Okay. So what you're wanting me to do is go wash your car. Is that right?
Yes. Now you say no.
And now I say I'm not able to do that. No.
No. Well, first of all, see how you wanted to qualify it? I'm not able to do it.
Yeah.
The truth is you could do it. It's okay to say no. But see, what happens is we'll rush to the answer without going through this process because we're so uncomfortable with what if I want to say no? So I'm going to do it again. So Robert, what I want you to do is buy me a round-trip ticket to Acapulco.
I'm sorry, no.
Would you be willing? So even saying, I'm sorry, I don't want you to do that. I want you to be okay with no, because no is just as okay. You guys can't say yes authentically if you can't say no. So what you want is?
What you want is for me to get tickets for you, round-trip tickets for you to the destination that you previously mentioned.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Okay, do you see? Okay, so you might have forgotten Acapulco.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard one to remember if we're not paying attention and listening. And I wanted 1 ticket for myself. So he said tickets. So do you see how easy it is, even in a simple exchange, to lose, because we're so uncomfortable with what are we going to say, what are we going to, and he even knows he's going to say no. So is that right?
Is that right? No.
Okay, good. See how he wanted to qualify it? Okay, here's what I want. I want you to go out and buy me a complete wardrobe and make sure that you get shoes to match every outfit. Are you willing?
No.
Okay, do you see? Do you see how he did it again? So go here.
What you want is for me to. I got distracted by doing it wrong.
That's
Can you
okay.
ask me a question
So let's
again?
thank you. So see, it's okay to do that. We do get distracted. I mean, how many times have we met somebody and we're so nervous about who they are and what they're going to think of us that we go, what was their name? They just told me their name. I just shook their hand. That's because we put protections up all the time. So it's a conscious choice to be accountable in the way that we're communicating. So what I asked for was that you would go out and pick out a whole new wardrobe for me and get me matching shoes for each outfit. Are you willing?
So what you want is for me to go out and get you a wardrobe with matching shoes for each outfit?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
No.
Okay, good. So it's great. Now, how are you feeling right now?
It seems kind of strange.
Yeah.
I kind of want to help you out.
I know, isn't that so? So part of it is this is so cool because part of it is we get kind of enmeshed. It's okay for you to be you and me to be me, and it doesn't mean anything if you say no to me. Mm-hmm. But we do this because we're so uncomfortable with that chaos, right? Okay, so now this time you say yes and you don't have to do it, okay?
Okay.
I want you to buy me a diamond necklace with matching diamond earrings. Are you willing?
You want me to get you a diamond necklace with matching diamond earrings?
Yes.
Yeah, that sounds good. I can do that today, actually.
Okay. Great. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I want you to do the same with me. I want you to make requests, and I'll do.
I would like for you to drive down to the dealership today and see if you can pick me up a new vehicle. Are you willing to do that?
Okay, so what I hear you saying is you want me to go and find a car for you today.
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
No.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Ask another one? Let's see. Would you be able to, what I'm needing is for you
Okay,
to.
do you notice what he's doing? Would you be able to is not the same as I want,
Right.
and what I need is not. See how uncomfortable we are?
Yeah. Trying to think of another scenario.
Use that scenario, just say I want.
Okay. The same scenario?
The one that was in your head that you were saying, stumbling around. Use that
Okay.
one.
What I want is for you to take this grocery list and head down to the store and please pick these things up for me.
Okay.
Are you willing to do that?
So what I hear you saying is you want me to take your grocery list and go to the store and go shopping for you. Is that right?
Correct.
No.
Okay.
So go ahead and we'll just do one more and this one will be
Okay.
your yes.
All right. I'm not sure what kind of a laptop I need. Could you do some research for me based on what my needs are and pick that up for me?
Okay, so you're doing okay except for I want you to do this.
Okay. What I want is for you to pick me up a laptop and do the research. Are you willing to do that?
Okay, so you want me to do some research to make sure that you get the right computer and then go pick it up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
So, simple, right? Simple, but difficult. So let's talk about why it's difficult. Why we don't like to say I want. I had an Adlerian psychology PhD that worked for me at one point in time because all of our work is based on Alfred Adler's work. And he left the company because he did not want to teach this exercise saying the words what I want. He was that uncomfortable with it. So the reason we don't like to say I want is because we have childhood messages that we're selfish or bad when we openly express I want. So guess what we do? We do it under the table. People feel it as manipulation. People feel it as pressure and guilting them. We're emotionally uncomfortable because we're afraid of the no. We think it says something about us if somebody says no, I'm not going to do it. The truth of it is if they say yes and they don't mean it, they're saying no anyway. Or they say, or they're feeling forced into it. You're not going to get an honest answer if you're not willing to hear an honest answer. You'll train people to hide the truth from you and stay in pseudo-community. As kids, we were often punished or criticized for persisting in asking for the agreement, right? Because our parents didn't want to say no or yes. And so we often, because they were uncomfortable, so they modeled that discomfort in saying yes, no, or give me 15 minutes to think about it and then I'll give you an answer. Something very accountable in their response. In time, we don't trust ourselves to say no or yes, honestly, because it was modeled as something frightening. So we fear that other people won't. We project onto them their own discomfort with things. That's where we start taking too much responsibility for others and not enough for ourselves. That's when we start minding other people's yards. Does that make sense? Okay.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes.
As a parent now, I find it pretty easy to say no to my kid because I think it's important to draw lines for him. But as an adult, I can relate completely to that slacking. I have got better at saying no to people when I don't think it serves me or them. But how is it that I can do that but still be uncomfortable with saying the no?
Because there are certain relationships that we have not learned how to manage. Like some of us have a good relationship with our peers, but we don't with our authority figures. Yeah. Or we have a good relationship with our authority figures, but we don't with the people that we direct. Yeah. So there's just work. That's just an indication, there's work to be done there. I have fear there. I close, I clench, I go to chaos in that situation. And part of the reason we don't like no, hearing it or giving a no, is because the same reasons. We have childhood messages that we're selfish or bad if we openly say no. How many of us were said, of course you're going to share your toys with that neighborhood kid. Of course you're going to go say sorry. yes, you are going to do this, right? So we weren't given the opportunity to say no and learn that there's a healthy way to say no and a healthy way to receive a no. We are emotionally uncomfortable because we fear criticism and rejection. You could see that with Robert. Like he felt uncomfortable, almost like we want to justify our no, or we will lose their acceptance, love, and approval. And again, that is none of our business. It doesn't help us to worry about that because we won't be in integrity and we're going to end up messing up that caring relationship because we're out of alignment within ourselves. As kids, we were often punished or criticized for saying no to adults or even peers. In time, we don't trust ourselves to say no or yes honestly, so we start projecting that onto other people. Oh, they're probably saying yes because they think they should or have to. They probably really don't want to. It's probably a burden to them. So before we even ask, we've already talked ourselves out of asking. Or we ask for what we think somebody will give us instead of what we actually want. I know people that do that with jobs. Well, I really want to ask for this salary, but I don't think they can afford that. Well, how do you know? And it's not even important whether they can or can't. It's important that you're willing to hear the no, or to pose the question and be willing to have the no or even the yes. So again, we take too much responsibility for others and not enough for ourselves. Okay? So, gossip. This is a place where we would be doing the awareness of others and the management of the relationship. Why we gossip. There's actually 5 really understandable reasons we gossip. 4 of them are around our core social needs. The first is that we all need to feel empowered in our life. We need to feel as though we have influence, that we can affect things, that we have a voice and a say in things. When we don't, we gossip because we feel empowered. When we go and we start talking about somebody, it juices us up, right? And it makes us feel like we're doing something about the situation that's happening. In fact, we're not. So it's a fake power, but it sort of is like Dr. Dan would say, it's eating that chocolate to get the energy instead of eating kale to get that energy. Another reason we gossip is that we all need to feel lovable. We don't all need so much to be loved as to be loving. And we also cannot be loving if we don't know that we are lovable. Now, it's not to say that we don't thrive on love, but we think we need to be loved. We just need to know we are lovable. When we don't, usually something has triggered that self-doubt, that insecurity, and so we gossip to make ourselves artificially feel lovable. If I can say you're terrible, then I can start to think that I could puff myself up by doing that. So you can understand why we would gossip from that place. We also gossip because there's a lot of times we're not given the opportunities to contribute. People don't receive from us well because so many of us have trouble with receiving, or there's a situation going on and we don't know what to do to make it better, or we don't believe we know what to do. So out of that sense of powerlessness around contributing a solution, we'll gossip. A lot of times we're gossiping because we want to be connected. And in our culture, if you get really mushy with people and say, I really love you and I really appreciate you and I'm so glad you're in my life, they'll be like, oh, well, let's sing Kumbaya, go hug a tree. Like we're so uncomfortable with, even in America, we don't even physically touch each other like they do in Europe. I think they say on average they touch, 26 times in an hour or something, and they physically stand closer to each other. It is more socially acceptable to gossip and connect through gossip than it is to connect through love and appreciation and kindness. So it's just something to be aware of, that I would say fill these in a positive way so that you don't fill the vacuum with gossip. Another reason is we actually believe that we need to vent. Well, I just need to vent. Venting is usually another word for gossip, the way we typically do it. We do need to vent, but we don't need to do it in the way that we do it. So here's a healthy venting process. And I would just suggest that you keep this close at hand so that when you do have a situation and you're going to somebody, you kind of become so that it becomes memorized to you. The first one is, well, first it's important to remember that healthy venting does help. But when you have unfocused venting, it does not help. It actually hurts. So the first step is, if you go to somebody to vent, as much as possible, don't name names. Don't even give them enough specifics that they know who you're talking about. So you say, hey, the situation came up with somebody. I'm feeling like I need to do something about it. I'm not quite sure what to do, but I want to know, would you be willing to listen? Because when you're going to vent, You want to be conscious of what it costs the other person when they're hearing about the painful situation, because it is very costly when we talk about negative things in a negative way. It's not so costly when we talk about it in a way that we're moving toward resolution. But even still, it's asking something of somebody. So you ask them, can you listen to me so that I can come up with a plan? That's your intention. Then you want to focus on your doubts, fears, and weaknesses. This is the hardest one because we want to go in the other person's yard. Well, before I tell you how I'm feeling about myself in this situation, let me just tell you what their intention is, what their behavior is, what their faults are. But what you want to do instead is say things like, I'm really not sure what to do. I'm afraid if I go to this person, they might blow up in my face and I'm afraid I won't know how to deal with it, or whatever it is. Or I'm so angry, I can't see past my anger. Or that's a way to vent that's truly helpful to you. Then you want to say to the person, this is what I really want to have happen. I want that when I meet up with this person, that at the end of it, we've kind of restored things. We've kind of worked through this issue. I want to see that at the end of this, we're closer instead of further apart. The next step is to say, this is what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to go to this person, I'm going to set up a meeting with them, I'm going to sit down and talk with them. If that doesn't help, I'm going to ask a mediator to come in, or whatever it is. Then you might say to the person, I would like to role play how this is going to go so that I'm feeling more comfortable with how I'm going to say it and what I'm going to do. And you might ask that person to kind of walk it through with you. When you're done, do something to be responsible for your own mood, because you're probably feeling a little bit afraid. You might even be feeling a lot of emotions around just being so responsible about how you're going to handle it and that you're going to go forward in a positive way. So you might want to do things like one of my favorite quotes is, be the change you want. If I want somebody to be kind to me, I'm going to be kind to them. If I want somebody to understand me, I'm going to work on understanding them. So you might say a prayer, tell a joke, appreciate the person you shared with. Something that puts you, there's a saying by Einstein that we cannot solve problems from the energy that we created them in. And so we're responsible for that energy. And that's a big part of whether a caring relationship occurs. It's not the words we say. It's not, how we could even say something that sounds harsh. But if our intention is in a particular place and our energy is coming from love rather than fear, it will have a different kind of impact. Okay, so I think that I'm going to go ahead and conclude there. So thank you all for your attention.